did a very, very bad thing. To whom, sir? To whom? Yes, sir. Well, I don't know.
My name is Paul Conroy. I'm an American citizen from Hastings, Michigan. I'm a civilian truck driver for Creston, Roland, and Thomas. And I've been taken hostage somewhere in Iraq.
You realize what you've done to my wife?
They still have that. Yeah.
Oh, right in the Hoylick. Having a blast here, are you? Hi, how are you? I'm Mark. I am the Cinemaniac currently, but really, in a larger, more biblical sense, we are the Cinemaniacs, so we're not changing the title of the show. How are you? I'm back with fewer films to talk about than I usually have. Usually we joke that we spend 40 minutes on the first film and then rush maddeningly to the end, like falling up a stairs backwards to try to get through the rest. But today it's only 5, so we should have time to discuss films more in full and more than just I liked it, I didn't like it. First up is a film about a young, troubled former police officer now working the graveyard shift in the morgue, how appropriate, dealing with her own personal demons while she is also dealing with demons of a quite literal kind in The Possession of Hannah Grace. Hi. So this is one that I went to totally blind, didn't know anything about it, and I expected an Exorcist knockoff. Because frankly, pretty much every film since The Exorcist came out that's about possession is more or less an Exorcist knockoff. Some are entertaining, like Beyond the Door and things like that, but for the most part, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And my whole attitude with exorcism films is, if you can't do it better than The Exorcist, just really don't bother. But this film really isn't about that kind of much at all. It opens with the exorcism, the titular exorcism scene, and I thought, here we go again, and then it fades to black. It has a very solid conclusion, then it fades to black, and I'm like, oh, are we gonna get one of these 3 years earlier things? But it doesn't, it says 3 months later, and I'm like really surprised. Now, if you've read the synopsis of the film, or you've just watched the trailer of the film, you know what I didn't know going into this, and this is not about Hannah Grace, this young girl who was possessed with priests and her father at her side during this really horrible period. This is about a young former cop who has had a very bad experience on the police force, isn't on the force anymore, just is taking a job as a solo morgue attendant, graveyard shift, as I said, at, what is it called? Boston Metro Hospital, which isn't real. It's funny, we're based, close enough to Boston. I've been to Boston off and on all my life. So to see Boston City Hall, big shot of Boston City Hall and a big fake sign that says Boston Metro Hospital, I'm like, that's not real. That's not a thing. But the interiors of the film, who knows where they were shot, but they really matched the exterior look of Boston City Hall, which is very strange and sort of sparsely futuristic. And so it's a very weird dungeon-like atmosphere that this hospital is set in, which adds to the creep factor. Feels a lot like The Keep, very stone walls, everything is made of stone, it's very strange. And she's alone. And what's funny is that the guy who takes her on explains the rules. Here are all the things that are going to freak out later and make you scared. Is an actor I recognize, and it turns out he was a guy who played one of the co-pilots in Airplane 2. And it was killing me until just now I looked it up on IMDb to figure out where I'd seen this guy before. Nice to see that he's still getting work. Anyway, this film is a very slow burn, creeper, atmospheric suspense movie more than anything else. The basic deal is that the body of this woman who died during an exorcism gets taken to the morgue, and then weird things start happening. And it may or may not be related to this girl's body, or it may be related to the psychiatric troubles and medication this morgue attendant is taking. And it really could be anything. It could be a possession thing. I'm just in terms of how this works. you could have done the same movie and said it was an alien in there, or it could have been a serial killer in there, or it could have been a ghost in there. To me, I would almost call this a ghost movie. It feels a lot like a film where weird things are happening, and is that my mind, or is it a ghost, and what's going on? You're really with this main female character the whole time, who's portrayed by Shay Mitchell, and she's quite good, I thought. Nobody really, to me, recognizable in the cast, which is good. I don't know who's going to live or die. I have no baggage from past roles anybody's bringing to it. For me, the failings of the film maybe was that it takes a long time to do what it's going to do. It didn't bother me, but others might. It's not a very long movie. I think it's like 86 minutes. When things get scary, it gets really fast cut shaky cam, which I hate. So to me, when things are supposed to be really intense and actively happening, I was totally taken out of the movie. I'm like, okay, I can't look at this because I can't see anything, so tell me when you're going to resume the story. But there's enough suspense and atmosphere in the setting that I thought that was pretty effectively creepy. Would I recommend anybody to see this? Probably not. I didn't think it was that good. As a movie that I had to see, I thought it was okay. If you're looking for a decent matinee thriller creeper for teenage 20-somethings who haven't seen a lot of better movies, it might be passable. I have friends who commented online that they saw it and they hated it because it wasn't what they wanted it to be. I thought that some of the aspects of it were a little cheesy, but overall, the location and the tone and the lead performance sort of kept me with the film until the end. I never lost interest. I never got really mad at it, other than using that really hack shaky thing. I could easily see that if this movie did well, there could be a prequel where you really see the Hannah Grace story. I could see a sequel. They sort of hint at what might happen next. I honestly don't think this is probably going to do that well. This is going to sink into all of the other possession of movies and probably be forgotten. It'll get rented a little or watched online, and it'll just fall into the heap. But at any rate, boy, that's a fine recommendation, isn't it? At any rate, The Possession of Hannah Grace was one of very few new releases this week, so that's out there in theaters. Horror movie, just past Halloween, so that's cool. Up next, we go over to this camera. Hi, how are you? We wanted to mix it up a little bit, because one schmo talking nonstop into a camera with no cuts I thought might be kind of boring, so we have a little artistry. Our team of artisans has worked on this today. Anyway, speaking of artisans, we have more of an art house film than what we just talked about, although you could probably say there are parallels to be drawn between the two movies. We have a film that tackles the controversial subject of gay conversion therapy in the church, directed by actor Joel Edgerton, which is interesting, and it stars Edgerton and a few other folks, and it is entitled Boy Erased. Hi. So, sorry, I'm so used to the way we used to do the show where there'd be these slow coming in and out of clips, and I promise it'll get better. It's all my fault. So this is a film that's been out for a little while. I'm glad I finally got to see it. It's playing locally at Keene Cinemas, but it's really been around the country, mostly art house theaters or larger multiplexes that have enough room for the more niche human dramas amongst all of the laser beams and explosions and giant monsters and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but I hate the phrase the older I get, but the older I get, the more I say the older I get. The older I get, I find that I'm enjoying films about people that are set in the real world more than spaceships and lasers and interdimensional tomfoolery. So here we have Lucas Hedges, who is he's in at least 4 movies right now. He's in mid-90s. He was in this. I believe he's in the new Julia Roberts film. He's in a lot. The man gets work. And he stars as a young man from a very religious family. His father, played by Russell Crowe, is the local pastor and runs a car dealership. And his mother is Nicole Kidman, dutiful church wife. And they're in a very religious Southern community. And he basically, it is revealed that he is gay. And his parents do not react well to that. So they decide that they're going to send him to this place where it is religion, the place where gayness is basically brainwashed and beaten out of you in conversion program, which is a real thing and they really exist. And this is based on a story of a man. The lead character is the man who actually, the lead character in this story is based on a man who actually did this and wrote a book about it. So it is very creepy. It is very. It made me sad. It made me scared. It made me angry to know that somebody actually went through all this and that it still happens. And it's told pretty matter-of-factly. It's not too sensationalized. It's a very good cast. Joel Edgerton plays the man who runs this company or whatever you want to call it, this service or school, and then you have Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, who has been acting in movies since the 80s, and I always thought was not very good. He's really good in this. I think with some age and experience on him, he was very effective as this former prisoner who is one of the counselors at this place, and he was effectively creepy and kind of disturbing at times, just in how cold and serious he was about this topic. The film, it sort of is a bit nonlinear. It jumps around a little bit where you see the events that led up to this young man being placed in this facility. And it's creepy to see inside this because it is really, okay, I'm not going to say I'm a Jonestown fan because that's weird and creepy, but it's an incident in American history that I find very fascinating because it's a thing that I think, like so much history, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Jonestown is a thing where similar things have happened since, and people aren't paying enough attention to that to see that it leads to really bad stuff. And I saw very creepy elements of what Jim Jones did in the People's Temple with what these gay conversion therapists were doing to the people who were in their care, and it was very, very scary. And it had led to not good outcomes, not Guyana level outcomes, but not good outcomes. So, you see a lot of Hollywood movies about religious people and religious types, and you have some that are made by religious organizations, and they tend to be kind of preaching to the choir, super squeaky clean, and frankly kind of cheesy to me. And then you see some that are made by Hollywood, and they tend to be very, I could say anti-religion, or I could say they just make everybody in these religious circles, zealots and wide-eyed, unrealistic people. This film it was sort of in the middle. I don't feel like it portrayed everybody who was religious in the film as an idiot or as an evil person. It portrayed people who have strong beliefs, and that's what guides their lives. And then they have to come up against something that challenges that, and what do? And you have Russell Crowe and Nicole Kidman as the parents of this gay man, and it's like, well, we believe one thing strongly, but he's still our son, and what do we do about this? And it was a lot of pretty painful struggle that you see throughout the film. I won't say how it all resolves or if it resolves, but that was very interesting because I wasn't really quite sure which way it was going to go. So who's this for? This is for anybody who's curious about this practice, anybody who maybe has family members that are gay or not, or are curious about how somebody might go through that in an environment where you are seen as something that is innately wrong and evil just for the way you were born. I wouldn't say this is a very good film for people younger than teenagers. I would say there's a scene that's pretty unpleasantly explicit, and I don't mean in terms of, I think it's unpleasant no matter who you are, explicit. And when I was watching that, I'm like, oh yeah, so this one is not for the younger folks. This is somebody, you probably need a strong will to get through that scene, brief as though it is, and not really explicit, but you know what's going on, and it's something that is a catalyst for what happens in the rest of the movie. So this is at Keene Cinemas right now. It's playing around the country. I would say it's well worth checking out. To me, this is probably Oscar caliber stuff going on. Lucas Hedges, I kind of go back and forth on whether I like him, but I thought he was really good in this, so it makes me more interested in seeing what he has coming up. And that is all that I have to talk about that is currently playing in the theater. I believe Anna and the Apocalypse also came out this weekend, but that was not playing anywhere that I could get. Not a lot of the theaters that I went to this weekend, and I went to a couple, got much in the way of new films. I think they're kind of holding strong with the more popular titles. So next week we should have a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about in the theater. And if I play catch up, I'll talk about more current existing releases. I know The Colonial has the new Robert Redford, allegedly his last acting role, The Old Man and the Gun, and that's there for 2 weeks. So I'm going to try to see that and maybe talk about it next week. I don't always talk about things at the Colonial here in Keene because by the time I'm here on Monday talking about it, you only have another day or so to go see it if my words influence anybody to go see something. But in this case, it's going to be there for 2 weeks. And the Melissa McCarthy movie, Can You Ever Forgive Me, which looks quite good, the drama where she's a forger, that's going to be at the Colonial for 2 weeks in the near future. So I'll probably talk about that one too and help inform people about that. So now we move on to home video. Hi, how are you? Only a couple on home video too, so this might be the shortest show ever. Tom Cruise is back as Ethan Hunt for the 7th 8th time? I really don't know. See, I always say, boy, it's really lazy when they have a movie and sequels and they just call them whatever part 2. And then I come to something like this and I'm like, they don't put a number in it. I don't know what episode number this is. Tom Cruise and the whole team are back again, globe-trotting, actioning all around the world to stop some threat from doing something I'm certain is very terrible in Mission Impossible Fallout. I really love... Oh, hi, how are you? Sorry, I was talking to them. You're the important one. I really love this a lot. I'm kind of hit or miss on the Mission Impossible movies. I think they're all entertaining, but I don't think about them again. I watch, it's like the Harry Potter movies for me. I watch them in the theater, I'm entertained by them, and then I never think about them or go back and watch them again. But for my memory, this is one of the best ones. And to say for a film series that's been going for like 20 years now, when you frighteningly do that math, to be this good this far into a series it's crazy. Very few film series can either maintain a quality level or to have a quality level shoot way up after they've been doing it this long. I cannot really recall what the plot is about. Big bomb's going to go off. They want Ethan Hunt and his team, that's like most of these movies, but the plot doesn't really matter. The plot is a reason for a lot of amazing action sequences and to get the team back together again and maybe add a few new ingredients to the team. Again, I don't remember all the films, so when they brought somebody back that was supposed to be a big deal, Michelle Monaghan in this film, I'm like, who was she? Oh, she was his wife? He was married? I don't remember. For people who follow the continuity, it's a big deal. If you don't follow the continuity like me, they explain it, so it doesn't matter. So you really, I think, could plug right into Mission Impossible Fallout, having never seen any of the other ones, and I think it would be just about as entertaining as anybody who really knows these movies really well. These movies slipped in when the James Bond franchise was kind of resting for a little while, and I always said, I love the Bond series, a huge Bond fan, and I always say, if it takes you 2 years to make one, that's okay. If it takes you 3 or 4, I'll wait. If it's going to be good and it's not just going to be this Thunderball storyline again, or if it's not going to be Die Another Day again, I'm okay. You can wait. And we've had these other films come in. So while we're waiting for another Bond film, we get a Mission Impossible, and these are great. And it's like what people say, we need a female Bond, we need a black Bond, we need an Asian Bond. No. We need a female action hero, we need a black action hero. Give me 5 of these series, don't just give me 1. So yeah, please, give me these Mission Impossible movies. If you come up with another kick-ass action spy franchise, great, then we have 3. So I really liked this a lot. This made me giggly. As you may know if you watch this program, I'm a huge fan of action movies, and I'm a huge hater of how action movies are shot and executed these days on film. And this movie did not cave into those sins. You could see what was going on in this movie. And beyond that, it looked real. Most of the time, I can spot CGI, and there seemed to be very, very little of this. So when you have Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill chasing each other in helicopters through this mountainous ravine somewhere, it really looks like they're there. And I don't know if that's good green screen. I think it's really because they were really there doing it. And Tom Cruise is, say what you will about his personal life and beliefs, he picks good movies, and he really wants to do his own stunts most of the time. Now, sometimes that results in a movie like Jack Reacher 2, where it's like, wow, this movie exists to prove that Tom Cruise can still run at full speed. And then other times you have movies like this where it's just like, that looks real. And why I love the Jackie Chan movies, he did his own stunts up to a point, and everything was more frightening and exciting because that was really that guy doing that. It wasn't clearly a double, it wasn't clearly green screen and wires. And in this movie, it is pretty clearly Tom Cruise and these other people doing this stuff, and it's exhilarating. It's amazing. There's a fight scene in a bathroom with Cavill and Cruise and another guy that had me giggling because it was so brutal, and I was giggling because I could see what was going on. I knew who was doing what to whom and who was where in relation to everybody else, and it was thrilling. And then I was like, what's the plot of this movie? I don't remember, but that guy just decked that guy, and it was cool. So I loved Mission Impossible Fallout. This is one that I do kind of want to rewatch again at home. It was great on the big screen because these are these globe-trotting adventures, and they know how to shoot the world around them. So this is one that I would have seen in IMAX if I could have, because these great outdoor vistas and fights on cliffs and buildings and moving vehicles and all that really would have had a greater sense of scope than however big your TV is at home. If you have a great big TV at home, good for you. Those are really cool, but it can't beat a movie theater screen for scale and impressiveness, and to just draw you in and let you forget the world around you for a while. Where? Tangents. Hi. you get more of these when it's just me talking. So Mission Impossible Fallout is now out on whatever the platform, device, service of your choice is, and I would highly recommend that one. Up next, I'll need to refer to my notes because, I only have 5 movies to remember this week. Oh, here's one. Speaking of operations and missions and things that go bump in the past, we have a film that is based on the true story of the team of people that, what was his name again? Sorry. Working the kinks out here. And Ray Davies could not be happier about that. We have a film based on the team of people that went out to bring back alive Adolf Eichmann, former Nazi atrocity engineer, back long ago when he was living in seclusion in South America. And it was entitled The Film and the Plan, Operation Finale. So this was a pretty limited theatrical release. It's funny, MGM was once a very grand Hollywood studio, very prestigious, certain level of quality. If you saw that lion roaring, you knew what you were going to get. And then at some point, MGM, they sort of ceased to be a studio. They were bought by somebody else, and they were basically just a brand that was slapped on things. It's kind of like Screen Gems now. I meant to mention, whenever I see the Screen Gems logo, there's going to be a point to this. Whenever I see the Screen Gems logo, I'm always like, oh, this is a film Sony didn't feel confident enough to put just the Sony brand on. And Screen Gems tends to be horror, and that's what Possession of Hannah Grace was. Possession of Hannah Montana, I wanted to call it. So now I feel the same way with MGM. When I see the MGM logo, I usually get a little nervous because for the longest time, the MGM logo in recent years has just been thrown on things that generally are not very good or just tiny releases. And that sort of was applicable. When I saw the MGM logo come up in front of Operation Finale, I thought, uh-oh, this could be a problem. And what this film is it's based on the story of the group of Israeli agents who went to South America to locate and recapture Adolf Eichmann so that they could bring him back for war crimes trials. And I went to the History versus Hollywood site that I'm a big fan of after I saw this, and apparently an amount of this is fiction. There was a team of guys, and they did a pretty good job in casting guys that looked like the real guys, but the whole female doctor with a past related to Oscar Isaac, totally fabricated, which it's some dramatic moments that were totally fabricated for no real reason other than drama. But otherwise, it was relatively accurate. Ben Kingsley is Adolf Eichmann, and I thought this was more about the hunting of this guy and the investigative techniques used to find him and all this other stuff, and it really isn't. There's very little that leads up to them capturing Eichmann, which is very interesting and very exciting, and you can get lost in the story and not know whether they're going to get him or not and what's going to happen. But really the majority of the film is a battle of wills between Oscar Isaac as an Israeli agent and Ben Kingsley as Eichmann. They need Eichmann to sign a document that says, yes, I am this man and I am willing to go to trial. And he's very resistant to do that. So it's really a battle of wills and a cat and mouse intellect game between these two guys in a room for the most part. So once I saw that that's what this movie was going to be, there's some flashbacks to Isaac's past and Eichmann's past and some other things too that are pretty unpleasant because of the subject matter, with it being the Holocaust and all. Good thing this is out on time for Christmas for video. That most of this, it felt sort of like a well-funded made-for-TNT movie from the 90s. Like, really good caliber of talent in front of and behind the screen, but pretty limited in scope as to what it is for budgetary reasons. So I think there may have actually already been a film about this thing that maybe was more about capturing him and how they found him and all that. Because I looked up some things, and it seemed like this isn't the first time this tale has been told, but I thought it was compelling. I think if you don't already know the history and you're not a stickler going in for the fact that some things are fabricated for dramatic purposes, it held my interest the whole time. It's just maybe not the thriller that the trailer may make it look like. It's really more of a conversation. This is the kind of thing that could be done as a stage play, or almost felt like it might have originated on the stage, which it hasn't. So it's very contained. So just be aware when you go in that this isn't a lot of, guys radioing back and forth and looking through telescopes on rooftops and things like this. This is mostly just, two adult males in a room having long conversations. It's sort of like my dinner with Eichmann, so to speak. So It's out now. I think it probably appeals more to the historian in all of us, the people who are curious or remember back in the, I believe it was early 60s when Eichmann was captured and went to trial. Certainly everyone in it is good. Oscar Isaac is great. He's very versatile. You don't always recognize that it's the same guy. You know, Poe from the new Star Wars movies is this Nazi hunter and other things, and Coen Brothers movies and things like that. And Ben Kingsley is always great. He's very dependable. So that is out now on video. Now we move over to the, maybe we don't. We move over to the, oh, there it is. I'm sorry. They told me how to do it too, and I did it wrong. Because you know why? Because I'm my own man. I'm a maverick. I don't listen to anybody in terms of wanting to have things done correctly. So there we are. How are you? See? Like I said, multiple cameras makes it more fun, right, folks? Movies@CheshireTV.org, by the way. If you ever want to send me an email or have a question or a comment, or you have an old movie you remember part of but you don't know the title, send it to us. Or if you see anything that we don't, or you see things that we do, or whatever, we like to get mail to know that anybody watches this program. So we move on to the Arrow Video Corner. And this week it is, again, one of those things where you think Arrow Video, or I think Arrow Video, and I think horror movies and goofy movies and sleazy movies and oddball foreign movies. And Ingmar Bergman? This is an Ingmar Bergman movie this week. This is a film from 1977 with David Carradine and, of course, Liv Ullmann, a Ingmar Bergman film about pre-Nazi Germany and some rising tide of unpleasantness entitled The Serpent's Egg. Is it through? This is a film that I have had on VHS for years. This is what I picked up at the my beloved First Run Video in Brattleboro, which is no longer there. Like all of my beloved video stores, it ain't there no more. I had picked this up used on tape years ago, mostly because the cover and the spine text made it look like it was some kind of weird sci-fi or horror movie, and then I flipped it over and I paid like a dime for it. I'm like, Ingmar Bergman? So that trailer makes the film feel a lot more... it makes it feel a lot more sensational or pulpy than it really is. It is different. It is odd. I expected some very gentle drama. And what you get is this thriller where David Carradine is this guy who is part of a circus act that's split up, and he's stuck in Berlin, and his brother, he goes to visit his brother in the rooming house where he lives, and he has apparently killed himself with a shotgun. And it's him trying to figure out what really happened because that suicide doesn't make sense. He joins forces with Liv Ullmann, who's his brother's now ex-widow, ex-wife, and Gert Frobe, who played Goldfinger in Goldfinger, is in it, and you get to hear his natural speaking voice, which you didn't in Goldfinger, and that's kind of cool. Gert Frobe is this police captain who's sort of investigating, but very, very accusatory and very suspicious of David Carradine. So it's almost this weird Kafka-esque. It gets stranger as it goes along. Something weird is going on, and we don't know what. And then you get these little hints. This takes place, I'm not sure exactly the date, but it's Berlin before the rise of the Nazis to power. But you're getting little inklings of that's going on, and weird things are going on. And they kind of casually mention Hitler here and there. And as it gets toward the end, it gets more and more bizarre. And by the end of the movie, I'm thinking, this feels like a very different film. I mean, I was liking it because it was getting strange, because I don't want to give anything away because it was a surprise to me. I was just taking this as it came. I hadn't even seen the trailer when I saw it. So it's well made. Apparently this was Bergman's biggest budget that he ever had to work with. Dino De Laurentiis, who's known for such classy things as King Kong 76 and Flash Gordon, funded this film because he wanted to fund a Bergman film. So you have very lush sets and exteriors, and they recreated this whole, 1920s Germany downtown area with, cable cars and all this stuff. So it feels very authentic of the time. Slightly less authentic is David Carradine with his normal accent as somebody who's from Austria, but that's okay. It's very interesting because I have a hard time taking David Carradine totally seriously and everything, even though he had done Bound for Glory and he had done other things that were very well respected. To me, he was the bald guy on Kung Fu, or he was Frankenstein in Death Race 2000. So to see him dead serious in the movie is a little odd, but the movie is quite good. It was odd. I haven't seen a lot of Bergman, but this felt to me atypical of Bergman. I think there were Bergman-esque touches here and there. It almost felt Fellini-esque at times, where you have these cabarets that Liv Ullmann performs in. So you see these strange cabaret shows that feel like the movie Cabaret. And it's a movie that's got a little bit of a scope to it in terms of, fairly large. I say large cast, not a lot of large name people in the cast, but large groups of people and all that. So I would recommend The Serpent's Egg. It's very interesting, and it's one that I had never. I guess it was out previously on DVD from MGM because most of the extras on this Arrow edition were ported over from that. It's one of those things where a lot of the creative team isn't alive anymore, so we really don't have much new to work with. So you have a commentary with David Carradine recorded, importantly, before he died, as well as a featurette and several featurettes that aren't very long, but they are informative and they help give me a little background into how this movie came to be and maybe to understand what I did just watch a little bit better. The transfer, new HD transfer, this is one of those where I'm not going to say it looks phenomenal because it's a very dreary looking film. It's all very gray, and the film people are all dressed in brown tones. So there's not a lot of gorgeous to be pulled out of the original negative on this, but I think it looks sharp. I can't imagine it ever looked better. I don't think it's had an HD release anywhere in the world before. So certainly it's an upgrade from the old standard def MGM DVD. So that is out now from Arrow, and certainly worth looking at if you like. I guess if you like David Carradine, if you like Bergman, or if you're interested in a film that's set in pre-Nazi Germany with Goldfinger speaking in his natural tongue, and a film that gets really weird at the end. I'm trying to think of another film I could compare it to, but it starts feeling like the first Captain America movie with the weird Nazi experimenty things, or Overlord, if you will, which is a movie that I didn't care for. So that's all I have to talk about this week, but since we have a little bit of time, there are some other things I was going to bring up. So you had heard Tom and I talk about MoviePass for a long, long time, and you probably heard about it, and unless you're a fool, you don't have it anymore, like me. So MoviePass was this thing, okay? It was a thing where you would pay $9.99 a month, and you get this little thing that looked like a credit card, and basically you would see movies. You would pay $9.95 a month. You could see as many movies as you wanted, one a day, shall we say, over the course of a month. The only stipulations were you couldn't see a 3D movie, and you couldn't see the same movie twice. So in theory, you could see 30 movies a month at full price for $9.99. I got that because it seemed like that's a crazy deal. That's too good to be true. It ultimately was. And it was fantastic for a while. And then when Mission Impossible Fallout came out, interestingly enough, MoviePass ran out of money because more and more people were getting this and seeing like a movie a day. And if you're paying $9.99 and you're seeing multiple films for $9, $10, $13, there's no money to be made there. They had hoped that people would treat it like a gym membership where they would pay their $9.99, but maybe they wouldn't see a movie this month, or maybe they would see one every once in a while. But you had people like me who, for this show, I need to see 4 movies a weekend generally, so I'm going to use this thing all the time. And it was fantastic because previously we had a deal where at Keen Cinemas we got in for free. And so that meant everything we needed to review, if we didn't want to pay for it, we had to go to Keen Cinemas. But with MoviePass, I could, anywhere I was on the road, I could see the films I needed to see for this show, and I could see movies that weren't playing locally, which was always cool. So when Mission Impossible Fallout came out, MoviePass ran out of money, so suddenly you couldn't use it at all. They stipulated new rules like, okay, well, maybe some new movies you can't use this for. So all of a sudden there were certain big films you couldn't use it for, but that was still okay because you could still see the majority of what was out there. Then it was, we're going to limit you to X number of movies per month. You can only see 3 a month for free, and then after that, you'll pay a discount. You'll get $2 off, which for me is great because the amount of movies that I see, I'm still saving money. Then it became, suddenly you would have the app on your phone and it would show you all the movie theaters within 30 miles of where you are and what movies you could see with MoviePass. And it became less and less and less until the last 2-3 months, I open my app and there's nothing I can see for 30 miles around. And that's a lot of screens you're talking about. Or I go to Yonkers, or I go to Pittsburgh, or I go to Laheyton, where I spend my weekends, and there's multiple 16-plexes, and there's no movies you can see. What they ultimately changed it to was, okay, every day there's 6 films you can see with MoviePass. The problem is, those 6 films are incredibly obscure art house films that nobody is showing. So if you live in a big city, maybe you can see one of these movies a day, but probably not. So effectively, it is a way MoviePass is taking all of everybody's money and basically refusing to pay it out, or making it increasingly difficult to get any use out of this product that you pay for. Now, they do add more common mainstream films over time. Like last week, Bohemian Rhapsody one day, or Instant Family, which has only been out like 2 weeks. So there are some things you can see, But those movies still need to be at your local theater. And a lot of local theaters like us in town, in Keene, at Keene Cinemas, you have 6 screens. And they, if it's popular, they'll hold on to it for a while. But if it's not, they'll swap something else in. So by the time it shows up on MoviePass, it's gone. You can't use it. So most people have ditched it. I was saying as long as I could get my $9.95 worth back plus some, I would keep MoviePass. And I kept a note in my phone of how much I was using it for every month. And it went from, at its peak, I used like $100 worth of value for that $9.95. And that dwindled steadily until November, which we just exited, and I never used it once. So I'm pretty much done with MoviePass. So some said MoviePass's greatest gift to the world was the idea of subscription-based moviegoing, and that you couldn't go back from that. So in reaction to MoviePass, AMC started their own program called A-List. They have a program called Stubs, which is, it's a loyalty program. You sign up for it, and every time you spend money there, you get points, and ultimately you get free stuff, or you get free things on your birthday or whatever. This thing called A-List is an offshoot of that, where I believe it's $20 a month. You can see 3 movies a week, no restrictions. You can see a 3D movie, you can see the same movie 3 times, you can see the same IMAX movie 3 times in a week. That's a heck of a lot of value considering how much movie tickets cost these days. It's crazy. So everybody who has Stubs that I've heard from loves it. Problem for me and anybody around here, we don't have an AMC within like 3 hours of this place. And there are sections of the country that are like that. So if you're looking for a MoviePass replacement and you don't have an AMC near you, you're hosed. There is something called Cinemia, which is S-I-N-E-M-A or E-M-I-A. It's called Cinemia. And a friend of mine has that. He lives in the Wappingers Falls, New York area, where there's a lot of theaters. So I asked him about that, and apparently the way Cinemia works is there are multiple plans you can have per month as to how many movies a month you want to see, and they range from like $9.95 to $50 or $60 a month. And when you think about it, if you see a lot of movies in a mainstream theater, if you're talking about 10 or 12, 15 bucks a whack, and you see a lot, these larger pay plans, I always said with MoviePass, if they were 30 or 40 bucks a month, I'd still pay because I would still be getting value for that. Cinemia, the way that works is you open the Cinemia app and you go to Fandango and buy a ticket for the theater that you want, and then you go back to the Cinemia app and they give you basically a credit card number to use back on the Fandango website, and then once you've purchased that, you go back to the Cinemia website and you tell them you just bought it. And that's pretty complicated, and that's probably more trouble than it's worth for me. And beyond that, you have to use Fandango, which I don't think you can use around here because our theaters are so small and not national chains. Maybe you can. And beyond that as well, Cinemia is based in Istanbul, Turkey. So some people are saying when you go to do this, your bank may cause red flags and refuse charges because you're doing all these international transactions to Turkey every time you want to go see a movie. So Cinemia is less than ideal. Apparently it works fine for some people, but it's an option. MoviePass somehow is still in business. I don't know how. Suckers like me who forget to cancel or haven't done it yet. I keep saying my relationship with MoviePass is like an abusive relationship. I remember when the times were good, and I foolishly think they're going to get better and go back to the way they were, even though deep down I know they aren't. I haven't canceled MoviePass yet. I keep wanting to give them another month to get their act together because I'm like, surely they can't keep going on this way. Surely they're not going to just keep taking everybody's money and do everything they can to not pay out. But it doesn't look like they're changing anything. One thing about MoviePass, though, I will say before I stop talking about this, is that if you have something known as an e-ticketing theater, apparently all is well with the e-ticketing theater. If you have an e-ticketing theater, you can use it like you always could. The trouble is, in my travels between New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, I think I've been in the 30-mile radius of 2 e-ticketing theaters. They're not common. So people who still have that, they're having a grand old time. But the rest of us are just opening it up every day and saying, yes, I paid $9.95 to not go to the movies, apparently. So that's the last I'll speak of that, unless I hear it gets amazing. I just figured I would share that with you because I have friends who've heard me talk about it on the show and weren't aware. I feel really bad for the people who bought year-long subscriptions to MoviePass at a discount because suddenly, a while ago, it just became totally useless and you paid for a year of something you can't use. And that's not too cool. So maybe a class action lawsuit will take care of that. Also, last weekend, I spent some time at a couple of theaters that I do so love. I went to Proctor's Theater in Schenectady, New York, which is a grand old theatre. It's a theater. They have off-Broadway, they have traveling Broadway shows. It's a big old theater. that theater exists, and they have a lot of live events. And then also built into the same building complex is the GE Theater there, which was funded by GE, who also has a plant in town. Gigantic screen, a huge sort of stadium seating that kind of pulls out so they can have as much floor space as they need. They can, pull it out and have more seats or less. And there's a group there called, it came from Schenectady, and they show my kind of movies there. So this weekend, it was a double feature of Dolomite and Sweet Sugar, which is a film that was played partially because I asked them to, and a double feature of two Shaw Brothers, very strange martial arts movies from the early 80s, The Boxer's Omen and The Bastard Swordsman. Not because he's not a nice guy, but because he doesn't have parents. And it was a really good time. It was great. They were DCP presentations. They looked amazing. Dolomite is always a blast and hilariously bad. And strangely, the most calm screening I've ever seen of Dolomite. It was very strange to watch that and not see people laughing at it. Sweet Sugar is a wonderfully sleazy and goofy and intentionally funny women in prison movie with Phyllis Davis, who you might know from Vegas, shot in 1972. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. I don't know that everybody else did, but I did. I was happy to see it on a big screen. Boxer's Omen was very strange and very gross and kept using the sound effects from the very end of Phantasm, where Angus Scrimm says, "Boy," and Michael Baldwin screams. That just pops up in this Asian martial arts movie. It was very odd. And then Bastard Swordsman was a very strange martial arts movie with a whole lot of foo and a whole lot of butterfly and moth cocoon style martial arts, which I didn't quite know what to make of, but it was interesting. Then yesterday I went to the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers, my other favorite place to go, and it was a five-film mystery movie marathon, Christmas crime marathon, and they ran Cash on Demand, early Hammer film with Peter Cushing, sort of a black and white noir heist movie. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo with Shelley Winters, early 70s AIP Curtis Harrington movie, very strange, sort of like a dark, sick, weird black comedy Hansel and Gretel movie with Mark Lester from Oliver. The Ice Harvest, which is from 2005, a Harold Ramis very dark comedy with John Cusack and Billy Bob Thornton, which was a really dark heist kind of thing that some people really like. I didn't particularly find it funny or interesting. It just didn't quite work for me, so I can sort of see why it tanked when it came out. The Package with Gene Hackman from the late 80s, which I'd never seen before, where it's Gene Hackman trying to stop Tommy Lee Jones, who's going to assassinate the president or the Russian premier or something like that, sort of like a political race against time thriller with a really good cast, set in Chicago, funny enough. And a movie called Seeds, Andy Milligan, early film. And if you know Andy Milligan, this was very Andy Milligan. It was very unique and cheap and not technically a very good movie, but amusing to watch. So that's what I saw this weekend. So I guess I did the math and I saw like 12 movies in the theater this weekend or something. And I lived to tell the tale. Mostly I told you all that so that I would give you the value for your non-monetary dollar in watching this foolishness for the last 60 minutes. So next week we have Vox Lux, which I know zip about, other than Queen Half a Doll is in it. Ben is Back, which also stars Lucas Hedges as a troubled youth. And Mary Queen of Scots, which may or may not come locally, but looks actually quite good. And a whole lot of Arrow movies that I'm going to try to watch over the course of this next week. So until next week, I am Mark, and I am the Cinemaniac.